go into a coffee shop and bring only a pad of paper. It doesn't have to be analog cards, it doesn't have to be nice paper. Like grab some paper out of your printer and like literally sit down with a stack of paper and a pen and only you and the paper in your brain and see how much differently you start to think. The fact that people still use the products that I've made for 5, 10, 15 years, like they're using some of the same products that I made way back then. That's like my goal, to try to get to that like timelessness when I'm making something. Taking that idea of like an index card or a Post-it note and then elevating it and then seeing how that will actually help people think better, help people take notes better, help people ideate better.
Welcome to Today in Design. We're launching this new series to explore all the ways that design, craft, and technology meet to build wonderful design-driven businesses. Today I sat down with my pal Jeff Sheldon from Ugmonk. You might not have heard of Jeff, but you've probably heard of Ugmonk. If you don't already have one of his analog or gather sets on your desk, the chances are that one of your friends or colleagues does. That's Jeff's handiwork. I'm borderline obsessed with how Jeff is so obsessive about quality. He keeps things slow, thoughtful, and ridiculously well-crafted while the rest of the industry chases the next trend. And let's be honest, in a world of endless generative AI and productivity apps, having a simple 3-card paper system to stay productive and focused, it's refreshing. You're gonna love this episode with Jeff. He unpacks the long game of building a bootstrap D2C brand driven by design. He shares why quality still wins when everything else feels disposable, and how a tiny company can punch above its weight. Jeff, thanks for coming on the show, man. I love Ugmonk. I'm obsessed with everything you guys do. I literally, right in front of me, this is not a prop, I have my new metal analog. I'm excited to have you, man. Thanks for joining for Today in Design. Would love to hear the story of Ugmonk. All the way from the beginning in 2008, designing t-shirts, to today, man. Talk us through it.
Yeah, well, thanks for having me on. I feel like my story, the number of years that I have to consolidate into 30 seconds gets harder and harder each time I tell it, because it's really a winding path, but I'll try to give everyone the brief overview, the cliff notes of my story. But yeah, I'm a designer by trade and an entrepreneur by accident, like many of us who kind of fell backwards into the business side of doing what we do. But I always loved making things. I loved art. I loved doing anything I could get my hands on, whether it was like duct tape and cardboard boxes or painting or just literally anything. Yeah, I studied graphic design, launched Ugmonk as a t-shirt project back in 2008. E-commerce was still super new. It was like rare to even have an e-commerce shop, but I was doing all these contests. I was doing Threadless and Designed by Humans, if anyone goes way back and remembers those sites. But yeah, basically designing t-shirts led to me launching my own thing, which I called Ugmonk, which was really just an afterthought and was supposed to just be a little thing to keep my hands busy. I loved making things, so I was like, let's make shirts. I'm having success in these contest sites, so I thought I'd try to do my own thing. Little did I know that 17 years later, I'd still be sitting here talking about this little side project that I kicked off. But yeah, it's been a winding road since then. A very slow and steady journey. I like to tell people it's the 17-year overnight success that I've been slowly building, and moved on from apparel into desk accessories. Now the analog that's sitting on your desk and tens of thousands of other desks around the world. But the thing that's remained the same is to make high quality physical products that people enjoy. And that's kind of what's led me to today. But yeah, we can dive into any part of the story that you want to hear.
Yeah, man, I actually want to stay in 2008 for just a second, because correct me if I'm wrong, but I feel like the first run of Ugmonk t-shirts was the original ampersand. And then you had a few other kind of graphic tees that you put out. But is that right? Was it the ampersand?
That was like the second release. So the very first release was like 4 typographic huge letters. I had this one called lowercase, which was just like the serif lowercase a and the rest of the alphabet on the side. Just like super, super simple, but things that I was like, I would wear that. So I made it, and turns out there's a lot of other people that wanted it. And then as we started like building an audience, this was before social media really. I didn't have any social media, but just building an audience through like forums and collecting their email addresses. People came to me for that minimal style. But yeah, the ampersand was the shirt that put us on the map shortly after launch. I think it was about 6 months or a year into it. But yeah, that got picked up by Uncrate and Swiss Miss and all the blogs back then that were all of us designers would go visit every day, and then they put me on the map. So I owe a lot of credit to those early design blog days.
Dude, I love it. I miss those days a lot. Now everything is like some Instagram trend with whatever music is trending right now to show stuff off. I miss the old days of Threadless and finding new stuff like that on Uncrate.
Yeah, I know. It was a simpler time, right? There was no algorithm. There was like this collectiveness that we all visited. You know, we'd visit Tina's Swiss Miss blog and we'd all be talking about the same thing. We'd visit Uncrate, and there was like, we all knew what was happening. Now it's like, I can't keep up with it, man.
Yeah, back when Dribble was great. But let's go through the timeline real quick. So correct me if any of these dates are off. So that's 2008. Fast forward, let's go to 2017. I think it was 2017 when you launched the Gather Kickstarter. Is that right?
Yep. Yeah, that was the first iteration of Gather.
And then fast forward a few years, you launched the Analog Kickstarter in 2020. Is that right?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, cool. And then 2023, you guys passed 100,000 Shopify orders.
Correct. Yep.
Dude, that's quite the timeline, man.
You can do the math and figure out that it's been a slow and steady journey.
It has.
People are doing these drop shipping, spinning up a brand and hitting 100,000 orders in their first month. And I'm like, I've been here just putting one foot in front of the other for the last 17 years and doing it kind of like the slow and meticulous way.
Yeah. And I guess, does that come back to, I think what your motto has kind of been codified now is less but better. So would you say that slow grind over years just comes back to that focus on doing few things but doing them really well?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, the quality over quantity, that was the thing in the beginning. Like, I wanted to make these shirts that I wanted to wear. So I was trying to source the best blanks. I was trying to make the screen printing a little bit nicer. I was trying to make the tags a little bit nicer. Like, every little part of it, that's how it started. And that's still the theme of what I'm trying to do, is like the less but better. Let's make something that's so beautiful and functional and looks great, but we don't need to make 1,000 different versions of it or try to hop on every trend. The fact that people still use the products that I've made for 5, 10, 15 years, like they're using some of the same products that I made way back then. That's like my goal, is to try to make that, to try to get to that like timelessness when I'm making something.
Yeah. So in that journey going from, originally starting to design t-shirts to now, you've got everything going down to like walnut desk trays, right? What are the design rules and principles that have kind of stayed with you the entire time?
I mean, the thing that I was always like struck by was, how can I make something work as good as it looks? And it seemed like there was so much design that was just for design's sake. And it was like flashy. And there's a lot of stuff in the furniture world, or even just in architecture. It doesn't really serve a purpose. It's just decoration, for lack of a better term. I was never like, I was never big on that idea of just decoration. I think there's a place for it. And I think aesthetics play a huge part into our lives, how we work, like our environments. We were even talking about like our setups in our office. Like, it does play a huge part. But if it's just simply decoration, then it doesn't really do anything. I was always fascinated with the Venn diagram of like the overlap of how something looks and feels materially, and then how it makes an impact on your daily life, and like when you're using the thing. So even something as simple as like a t-shirt, right? Like, you grab your favorite shirt out of your drawer because you like the way it feels, you like the way it looks. Like, there's something about that more than just probably the graphic that's on the front of the shirt, because even the best graphic on the worst tee, nobody wants to wear. So I've just been like fascinated with this idea. And Dieter Rams is the most famous industrial designer that is referenced, and I've drew a lot of inspiration from him as he's designed the Apple ecosystem. But like, his mantra of like less but better, and trying to actually design with purpose and intention and simplicity, and then the aesthetics came second, but it like all works together as this whole. That's the thing that I've always been fascinated with and striving to do with what we make.
I love that approach. And I'm really curious, like, if we were to distill that down into like one moment, I'm really curious, like, what's been the favorite project of yours, or the favorite kind of product that you've taken to market where you feel like that one thing really personifies all of your design principles at work?
It's got to be the analog system, the analog cards, because that product almost wasn't a product because I thought it was too simple. Like, I was like, this is so obvious and so easy, from the sense of like, it's an index card, but it's more than an index card, that I think that product really encapsulates everything that I'm trying to do. It's a simple paper to-do list. It's a card system that divides things up into today, next, and someday. It's all about prioritization and focus, and it's less about tinkering with some really extravagant planner setup or digital app or anything, but it's all about like starting my day by putting a few key things on that card and then sticking to them and then propping it up in the wood card holder or now the new steel version. And it just stares at me all day and it's like, do this, do this, do this. So every time I open my 56th browser tab, that card is still staring at me and saying, do this, do this, do this. And then I designed the little task signals and a way to kind of cross things off and delegate them and just simple, real visual cues to make it work for people where it's open-ended enough that people can adapt it to how they want to work. Launching that product on Kickstarter and seeing it hit over $500,000 or almost $500,000 was insane. And I think it just really hits that Venn diagram that I was describing where it's like the form, the function, and I guess the third piece of that would be like the aesthetic. That people are like, I just love this thing. Like, I love using it. I love keeping it on my desk. It's enjoyable. It's helping me. It makes me feel good. And then that's been our main hero product for the last 5 years. So it's been cool to see something like that where I was able to distill down like a really simple, not really reinvention, but just a better mousetrap essentially of what a paper to-do list could be.
Yeah, man. I love it. I use it every day. I want to hear from you on any pro tips and how you use it. But first, one of my guilty pleasures, and I imagine you're in this camp too, is my buddy Ryan Gilbert's blog, workspaces.xyz. And what's funny to me is that if you get on Workspaces or you're subscribed in the newsletter, as you scroll through all the desks from designers and creatives and engineers, there's one thing that you'll see on almost everyone's desk, and that's analog. Right. And recently, too, you've seen a lot of the Gather systems. But I feel like this is the product that your favorite designer is using because Jeff is one of their favorite designers. I'd love to know, what are your pro tips for using this thing? And you've recently started to expand the line. How do you think about evolving such a simple but purposeful object?
Yeah, I mean, the key is not to overthink it, right? Like anything that takes work, anything that takes the multiple steps and you have to like, even with like coffee and stuff, if it's going to take me 19 steps to get to the finished product, I'm less likely to use it. So people are looking for easier ways to do it. And I think with analog, the beauty of it is like, there's no like, okay, I need to take 10 minutes to sit here and think, and then I need another 10 minutes for organization, then I need to divide things up. It's like you literally grab a fresh card, slap it on your desk, and then either look at your digital to-do list or look at wherever you need and then copy those things down that you are thinking about in your head that are the most important things to get done. Just that act of thinking through instead of just whatever bubbles up to the top of the digital list is the key for me because I'm easily distracted and I would definitely just pick off all of the easy things off of a digital checklist because it's like, oh, I got 7 out of 10 things done. Well, I avoided the 3 that I actually needed to get done. The power is less about it's just a checklist because, yeah, I'm all for people using an index card the same way. If they want to draw the little boxes, they want to use this. I think the system itself is where the power is, but it's more about if you can actually be honest with yourself about what do I need to do. It's like you're committing to doing those things and then it's holding yourself accountable and then you get to check them off and then you get to feel good. But when you're avoiding the things that you know you should be doing, that's where we start to feel that productivity guilt of like, God, I went another day and I didn't do that thing. So there's no real trick or hack to it, but I think the beauty of it is that it doesn't take bullet journaling, setup, table of contents, index. If you're wired to do that kind of thing, like bullet journal and keep a log of everything, that's great. I just can't keep up with that. I'm not type A enough to do that. So analog is just 30 seconds of the day, put those priorities, and then off you go.
Yeah, I love it. One of my favorite kind of insider stories here about analog, I introduced you to my buddy Sahil Bloom. He bought analog and then subsequently became obsessed with it. And so in his new book, The 5 Types of Wealth, he has a page where he pays homage to analog. So it's really gotten out there in a lot of ways, man. It's super cool. Are you comfortable sharing with us, like how many analog units have you moved?
Yeah, I don't know the exact stat, but it's somewhere around 50, 60,000 of them. And again, you can do the math on that. It's not anything like a fast growing e-com brand. But the point is like each one that ends up on someone's desk, like the repeat rate of people coming back for more cards, people that say, yes, this is the only thing that stayed on my desk as I've changed offices and changed my setup. I think that's really fulfilling for me. And I think that shows the value of how sticky the habit is. Like I knew it stuck for me. Like I've been using this system forever, but I wasn't sure. And now it's like, I get emails from people and they're like, I don't have many habits that I can, add to my routine, but this is the one thing that sticks with me every single day.
Yeah, I will say it's funny because you wouldn't look at a product like this and think that it's kind of a recurring purchase. But for me personally, my desk at home was walnut. And so I had Gather, Analog, everything Walnut. And then when we moved into our new HQ, everything in here is a white oak. I was like, oh man, I'm going to have to rebuy all of my Ugmonk stuff to match the new theme of my office. So you definitely got me there. I'm curious, man. It's not this crazy overnight success. You're not like Sean Frink on Twitter, Ridge Wallet CEO blasting about 100 million e-coms, but you have built a really interesting business with a lot of staying power. I'm curious, how has that led up to you being able to live your life the way that you want and really kind of nail into this really beautiful creative process that it seems you've stumbled upon in the studio?
Yeah, I mean, the grass is always greener. So there's a lot of people that would be like, man, if only I could just do what Jeff does. Just make some products, design some little cards, sell a thing, do it super slow, high quality. There's plenty of sides of the business that you don't get to see that are the roller coaster where we're screaming as we fall down the downward slope and then we're back up again and then we're down again. But I think the intentionality part started pretty early where I made the jump going full time with Ugmonk 2 years into it. So I launched those t-shirts 2008 and then I went full time in 2010. And I loved this idea of being able to control my destiny. And I think any business owner or entrepreneur knows what it's like once they've come to the dark side and you get to establish your own schedule and flexibility in a sense. It's definitely not less work to do it this way, but my motivation was more around that flexibility. And now that I have 2 young kids, being able to carve out the life around all of those things and provide for the family and do things on my own terms was the driving force behind the way I've set it up. And I don't know, maybe I'm just too risk adverse. Maybe I should have taken $10 million and tried to make this thing huge and go on the fast, ride the Facebook ad wave back in the early 2010, 2015 era. But I've just kept the control, which I guess is the real reason, like keeping the control of the company and being able to dictate and do things on my own terms, as opposed to trying to grow super fast. That's not to say I don't want to grow, because we have to grow to survive. And man, costs and things that are happening right now with tariffs and costs and all that stuff, it's just like everything's getting more expensive. But I do think there's something to be said about not trying to grow to the moon, trying to find when is that enough number? What is the point of what I'm doing? And the point of what I'm doing personally is like, I love to design the next thing. So I love being in the design studio, prototyping, working on new ideas. I want the business to support that instead of just trying to create a business and then figure out how to support it.
I think you hit on some topical subjects there with the tariffs, and we're not going to get into any of the politics of the current situation, but you are a guy that manufactures everything in the United States. I'm curious, how have the tariff situation, how's that kind of affected you so far in terms of order movement and stuff like that? And you've tweeted that things have gotten a little slower, and I've subsequently tried to force people to buy more Ugmonk products on release notes. But yeah, how has that been for you lately?
Yeah, it's been tough because I think right now consumers are all like, I don't need to buy this stuff. And honestly, the things that we sell are not commodities. People are going to go to the grocery store before they're going to buy an extra piece for their desk. So things are weird there. And then there's a lot of the trickle down effect where people think, oh, made in the US, you should be great. Your stuff's going to get cheaper. I'm like, nothing that I'm doing is going to get cheaper. In fact, because of all the raw materials and the way that the global economy works, even things like steel that could be made here, but there's also imported steel that we use for our products, prices of that are going to go up. Demand for US manufacturing could go up. The manufacturers that I work with now, we already have so many issues with, and we're paying 400 to 800% higher than we would if we manufactured overseas. So it's like we're in this really weird spot where consumers are pulling back, costs are going up, quality is not going up necessarily, and we're just trying to figure out how do we navigate our small brand among the sea of things and stuff that's happening. But if anything else, I know that you'll buy 500 more analogs to keep us in business.
I definitely will. I'm curious, I know the answer to this question is going to be complicated, but I'd love to see this through your eyes. As you're thinking about this climate to where consumer spending is shrinking, costs are in a really variable state, potentially increasing even more right now, how do you think about navigating that for you? Is it a mix of, I need to keep designing new, really exciting products that people are going to keep buying? Or is it, let's double down on ads and move our existing inventory? How are you thinking about that right now?
Yeah, the other part that, I didn't touch on is just the advertising landscape and how much harder it is to cut through the noise. I can't say for sure if it's just algorithm changes, it's people's attention, it's people leaving platforms, are there less people active on Instagram than there used to be? But it just has gotten harder and harder and harder. And when we're starting, like for us, the margins already aren't great because our costs are so high that any movement on the ad cost front really puts us in a bad spot because we don't have a lot to play with. trying to basically figure out how do we fix some of our costs and get things in a place that feels more sustainable. The thing that you mentioned that I do have is the audience, like the core audience of people and fans that are always looking for the next thing. And if I can get more products out there, more products to market, that's the easiest way for us to sustain and to grow, slowly grow. But even that is just like product development takes a long time. It's just a really drawn out process when you're working with physical products. I have a ton of things in the works and I'm trying to get them out, but it's just a matter of aligning all of those things and trying to keep the lights on as costs are going up. We're trying to tighten the belt and figure out how to make it work. But yeah, I yearn for the days of Uncrate and Swiss Miss when it was like one blog post and boom, there we go. We would see orders coming in. Now it's kind of like you have to play the game completely differently.
It's wild to see even the evolution of Uncrate. I used to love that site, but now every time I hit that site, I feel like there's some new thing from Louis Vuitton or some crazy like Patek Philippe watch that's on the homepage. And it's like, all right, calm down, guys. Let's go back to the old days when this was just like really cool gear that you were surfacing. But man, speaking of new product development, I'm hopeful that there's maybe something you can tease or at least give us a quick glance that you might be working on right now, and then take us through that process of designing something from a sketch on an analog card all the way to having it actually ready to be packaged and shipped to somebody's front door. Take us through that.
I didn't come from an industrial design background, so a lot of this has also just been learning by doing. One of the key players behind the scenes is my friend Jack Marple, who's an industrial designer. He runs his own studio now, so he's basically the technical side behind Gather and all the stuff we're working on, but we're able to take those sketches, turn them into 3D models. We're 3D printing them and being able to rapidly prototype those forms of whatever the thing is to refine the actual geometry and how it functions before even sampling it in steel or wood or whatever material the final product will be. And that's been like the cycle for the last few years, really since probably the last 3 years. And it's been really fun to see the idea turning into a physical form quicker and learning all the ins and outs and the tolerances of manufacturing. I mean, there's so many things that you have to know about material, working with wood versus injection molded plastic versus metal versus powder coating, and all of the different tolerances that are just things you would never think about until you start to work with them. I've got paper swatch books for every type of paper imaginable, and there's just so many little decisions to be made along the way. So I think the end product usually, I mean, my goal is that it will look and feel simple, but there was like thousands of like these mini decisions that we had to make along the way about what type of finish, what color, what texture. And that's the process of like doing the process with my hands on the product that I still kind of get to enjoy, where it feels like I'm playing with Legos or I'm building stuff with duct tape and cardboard. So that's the process. And then as far as what's coming, with analog being such a success and like never imagined we'd be doing, I mean, we've done millions of dollars of sales in this single product. I've developed a broader system around analog that can be used for more than just your daily task list. Some of that stuff you'll be seeing soon, but different ways, different formats and ways to hold multiple cards, different materials. We're prototyping right now with some solid aluminum, like bead blasted solid aluminum, think like MacBook like finish, and just doing some different things that's going to elevate it even more. But the idea of using cards is the thing that stuck with me and the thing that I want to really lean into, because if you use a notebook, notebooks are great. I mean, I have sketchbooks and notebooks. I've got drawers full of them back here. But the card format itself is interesting because you pick it up and you move it around completely differently than you would a page in a notebook. We have journals where you can take the pages in and out. So putting something on a card lets you like visually arrange your ideas and see them all next to each other and quickly swap them and flip them around, hand them to someone. But it's again taking that idea of like an index card or a Post-it note and then elevating it and then seeing how that will actually help people think better, help people take notes better, help people ideate better. So yeah, that's like what's coming. That's like all I can really hint at, but it's a whole line of a card system that will help you not just plan your day better, but also help you like capture your thoughts and think better.
I'm excited to see that come. I got really excited when you said bead blasted aluminum. Here's, man, what part of this is your favorite? Because you're worrying about these tolerances and these finishes and these materials and all these very specific aspects that go into manufacturing, while I'm still seeing designers on Twitter argue about naming layers in Figma. So do you love just zooming in and nerding out on these fine details?
Yeah, I mean, if I could do anything, it would probably be just me in a room with a sketchbook, a 3D printer, me and Jack when we're riffing on ideas and trying to come up with the forms of things. But I love the detail, but I actually think my favorite part is the zoom in and zoom out. So I refer to myself as a master generalist because I don't think I'm actually amazing at one particular thing, just as graphic and brand design or product design. But I love the idea of like zooming into like literally refining the corner radius on the analog card holder and going through like iteration after iteration after iteration of that, and then pulling all the way back out and zooming and looking like, how does this fit into the business? How does this fit into the goal of what analog is for? And then how do we communicate that through our website, since we're strictly direct to consumer? So I think there's something about that zooming in and zooming out, zooming in and zooming out. If I had to only worry about corner radius on the corner radii on a product all day, every day, I would go crazy. And if I only had to stay at that 10,000 foot view and just, tell my team what to do and never touch the stuff, I would go crazy. But I love that I still like can kind of go in and out on each one of those design details and then see it through to the finished product.
I love that you're talking about this, the zoom in, the zoom out. I'm in that landscape probably too much myself between all the different projects that we have and we bounce around on. And something I think about a lot is that zoom out between like engineer hunter, designer hunter, CEO hunter, marketer hunter, and just the context switching that comes with that. I'm curious for you, man, like how do you think about those split personalities between like CEO Jeff that's got to make Ugmonk work as a business, and also designer Jeff that wants the perfect corner radius, the highest quality materials? How do you manage that tension?
Not very well.
We're going to start a therapy group together then.
Yeah, I think that's the hardest part is like the tension and the way that those two things are fighting against each other all the time. Again, I like that I get to put on CEO hat and then I get to put on designer hat and then even drill down even further and be like packaging designer hat and then branding for the packaging design. But like, I think the constant feel that you have to go back and forth and context switch is probably the hardest part about what I'm doing, because I don't have a team of 50 people. There's 3 of us. So it's me and 2 employees, and we're running everything from shipping to operations to vendor management to marketing to everything in the business. So we're all wearing 20 different hats. That's probably the hardest part, is staying in one lane long enough to execute and follow through and finish the thing, because it's like, oh no, to jump over here. I'm sure you feel this too, where you're being pulled in a million directions at once. But I also don't mind the fact that I get to have my hands in a lot of things. I haven't become great at managing, the tension of some of those things.
So you mentioned that Ugmonk is 3 people. Can you kind of give us a landscape of who is on the Ugmonk team, and then kind of let us understand what their roles are? Because that's a lot of work for a very small team. So it seems like you guys are punching way above your weight. I'd love to learn more about that.
Well, I will say most people think we're a lot bigger than we are. We get people emailing in and approaching us they think we're a much larger company. And I think there's value to that. I want to present our products as if they are on the level of any other high quality brand that would come to mind. And that's the part of that, is like the journey of making the thing, presenting it, photographing it, making us feel a certain way where it feels really considered without having like a team of full-time photographers on staff or something like that. But yeah, it's basically, the company is me. I have an operations director, and then I have a warehouse and shipping manager, because we're also bringing in the products to our warehouse here in Pennsylvania. We're doing the final QC, the assembly, and then we're shipping it out. And based on that, like the volume that we're at and the way that our company works with the small batch production locally here, that all kind of works. If we were to scale up, 10x, that would probably break down just from a volume and space size. We don't have 100,000 square feet of warehouse space or anything, but trying to find like that equilibrium of like, how many people do we need? We've had a couple more employees and then we've shrunk it back down, and we're just trying to find like what is the right space for us to operate in to stay true to the goals of like making these super high quality products, reaching people without really like, I've never tried to, I guess, put rocket fuel on the business and take on that investment, or just go hard into ads or hire a sales force to go out and just sell our product all around the world. So a little bit of that is like, it would be nice to have some more scale, because I think things would get easier, but then the bigger the machine to manage, the harder and the more stressful it can be when I have to wear that CEO hat. So I don't know, it's trying to find that balance, but I don't think you have to hire and be a 20 or 50 person team to do what we're doing. There's just trade-offs, and there's trade-offs for everything about the speed which we can operate.
I believe your wife used to run customer support. Does she still do that?
She doesn't anymore. She's in charge of our 2 kiddos. Yeah, she used to help me like fold the t-shirts. We'd sit there, like we'd get the shirts from the screen printer. We'd be sitting there and she'd be folding stacks of shirts. She'd be helping me pack up all the orders and write out the customs forms when we had international orders. Then I hired my mom early on, and she took over the shipping, built out my parents' basement into our first warehouse, and then slowly evolved from that to the space that we have now. But yeah, it still is a true family business. My kids will come in and they'll make boxes and they'll pack up stuff for us and collate things. So it's fun to also have that where like the business and life are kind of blended in the sense that like they get to see what I do, they get to help out, they get to be around. I think there's something to be said about also taking the slow and steady approach.
There's a lot to be said about taking the slow and steady approach. And I feel like that's something that in this day and age, with all the AI news and just how fast you can move things around, that people miss. It's just like quality does matter. It's a funny thing, man, because I'm not trying to shill Ugmonk by any means, although maybe I probably am, but I have 3 different Ugmonk products on my desk right, or 4 actually, if I count my pen. Not to mention the stuff that's behind me on my shelf. It's just something to where, you know, you and I know each other, but we're not close friends by any means. I just love what you do that much, and I know that thousands, 50,000 to be exact, other designers do as well. And I'm curious, what are the things about the quality that you inject into Ugmonk that you are seeing in the design world? Because I know you pay attention. What are other kind of designers doing or other products out there that you just love because the quality and the craft is so high?
Yeah, I mean, there's always new stuff. I feel like the pace of things dropping is faster than ever, and there's a lot of stuff that people are putting out that's really cool. Something that captured my attention recently, the Daylight computer. It's not an e-ink display, but it's essentially like a black and white tablet. Incredible marketing around the product. It seems like the product is great too. And I've even DM'd with the founder and he was talking about maybe make some accessories and stands and stuff for it. What fascinated me about that was the way that the whole message was about putting technology in its place. Not that technology is this devil and we're supposed to like try to keep this thing off of our back, but like how to use it to actually improve our lives. Their marketing and the textures on the case, like they thought about technology in a very different way than what is the sleekest, highest tech AI assistant thing that we can make. So that's one that comes to mind. That was very fascinating. Everybody should go watch that launch video if they haven't watched it. Other products that I've seen recently that you can kit out and start from nothing and build it out to what you want. And it's cool to see people just challenging the norms, both with like the Daylight computer, also with a Slate Auto, the Light phone, like all of these different things that we haven't seen that are kind of like, they're dumbed down in a way, but in a good way, that they're getting back to like, hey, we actually want to just live our lives. We don't need technology to literally run our lives like WALL-E or something where we're all floating around in these chairs. So those are a few things, but I think the common theme between all that stuff is like there's like a tactile, physical nature to it that they're all emphasizing. What else comes to mind recently that I've seen?
It's funny that you mentioned those products, and Daylight's such a good shout out. One of my favorite things about that is the case for the Daylight tablet is basically a little pillow. Yeah. It's just such a wonderful, delightful detail. But, you know, leading up to this interview, I texted you and I asked, I said, hey, like, how are you guys using AI? And your response to me was like, well, we're really not using it a lot. These are, I would say, like slow technology. These are like very tactile, very intentional instruments. It feels to me, Jeff, like you're romanticizing this slower movement, this more tactile, more almost bespoke feel to the technology than the rampant chat GPT of everything. You think that's true?
Yeah, I mean, I am certainly using it in certain forms, but it's more of the preface of like that AI is going to make our lives better, right? So like the fact that it's going to be able to do all these things in the background, we don't have to think, we can just clock out and it's doing, you know, it's kind of like automating all of the things, automating all of the appliances. Now, don't get me wrong, like I'm glad we don't have like a washboard anymore and we can put our clothes in a electric washer that washes our clothes. But I think the idea of like doing more in less time always leads me to like, and then what? Like for what? Like what are we doing? We're trying to just basically mash all this stuff down and have ChatGPT spit it all back out for us. I think there's tons of things that are great about that. Like having a calculator is awesome. Like I'm not going to do long division on my, you know, a scrap piece of paper to like, I'm not romanticizing that or romanticizing going back to typewriters and sending letters instead of emails. I think technology is unbelievable and I couldn't even do what I'm doing. I couldn't reach the people that I reach without it. But I feel like a lot of the stuff is just kind of to what end? and no one seems to be happier that they can automate all the things, and their home is smart, their car is smart, their fridge is smart. We have all this stuff, but how is it actually impacting us as humans in our relationships, in our lives? And there's less talk about that, where it does feel like we're leading towards the Wall-E effect of like, okay, so now we don't have to, think, we can just spit out copy and we don't have to do anything. But there's something about like the working for it that actually leads to the fulfillment. And I think we're designed to work, and we're designed to rest, and we're designed to do something, to work really hard, to enjoy the rest. And AI is kind of like taking some of that out. It's like, you don't even have to drive your car anymore. You literally can just exist. And people are feeling more and more aimless. And I feel like the anxiety and the lost feeling is getting amplified by a lot of that stuff. Not that I'm anti that. Like I used Claude for writing copy recently, and I was like, this is amazing. Like, but the end goal of all of it just seems like a weird place to be like, where do we want to go?
It almost sounds to me like you're preaching some form of purposefulness, right? And I see that in products. The rage the last couple of years has been second brain this, second brain that, and over optimization of Notion and all these tools. And your response to that is to have 3 cards, one today, one next, and one someday, which I use the next and the someday card on the top of my analog stack. And every month I'll say, hey, next, these are my goals for the month. And I limit it to that number of lines on the analog card. Someday, I limit that to the quarter. And it is this beauty and this clarifier of what matters most to me and my life and my business, whatever it is that I have to do. And it's so funny because I feel like there's this duality of man to where I'm like, okay, hold on. Somebody just shared this really cool Lindy to Gumloop to Notion automation, and there's a Zap here and then MCP this. And like, I could automate all of my brain in Notion if I did just this. Or I could stop, I could take a breather, and I could say, you know what? Let's actually sit down and just think. No technology, just think about what matters, how I want to prioritize, and then just write it down on this card. And then just have that beautiful tactile move of just checking it off. I love that, man. I love what you stand for and the way that you're being pragmatic about everything you're doing. I'm curious, where do you go next? You've got the expansion of analog coming. I've seen some previews. It's an enabler for more creativity within constraints, I would say is a good way to describe it. But where does Ugmonk go next? Where do you think the next few years are going to take you?
Yeah, I mean, I guess first we got to survive. We got to figure out how to get our business, running at a pace where it does feel sustainable. And we've gotten here 16, almost 17 years, so I think we can do it. It's just kind of figuring out what channels we need to be on and what team size and where we're going to manufacture our stuff. But my goal is to make more of those physical things. And there's other things outside of the card system that I'm working on, again, that will impact your daily routine or impact your daily life in a small way. But adding beauty, adding something that's delightful to use. I think of certain things in my life also that I grab for every day. My fellow coffee kettle, the EKG, which is just like a nice designed electric kettle. I grab it, it's balanced for pouring. There's like little moments like that just make life better because when you interact with them, they're enjoyable to use. That's kind of what I want to do is I want to fill those gaps. Like there's so many things that we have to deal with that we're like, I hate this, I hate this, I hate this. One thing I will not get into that is probably the most frustrating for anyone that has kids is kids' car seats. There's so many moments that I think we can design better. And I'm specifically interested in the physical world. How can we make our life better through those physical objects? If it's a simple desk organizer or it's something you hang on your wall or it's a place to put cards, I think there's a lot more that we can do that doesn't involve necessarily AI or better technology. It's kind of how they've been designing things for hundreds of years before technology.
Are you going to be buying the fellow espresso machine that they just announced?
I have not pulled the trigger on it yet, but I'm very tempted. That's actually another great example of another product that captured my attention, physical product. People should look that up, but they've nailed it. Yeah, they're trying to make really good espresso, accessible, easy, and beautiful. And it's like, man, that's exactly, we need more of that in our life and not necessarily 50 more versions of Notion that are basically clones of the same thing for project management. But one thing that you said before too was like, if people haven't done this, they should try it because it's very, very simple. Go into a coffee shop and bring only a pad of paper. It doesn't have to be analog cards. It doesn't have to be nice paper. Like grab some paper out of your printer and like literally sit down with a stack of paper and a pen, and only you and the paper and your brain, and see how much differently you start to think. At first, it's like intimidating. You're like, what would I even write on this thing? Like, I need my laptop. I need to check my email. I need to like at least pull out my phone. But I do think the analog mindset, like we have no time where we're not on technology, myself included. Like I feel the pull for this too. When I just sit down with a notebook and a pen and have to think through things, just free write, doesn't matter. There's no structure or anything. It's wild how foreign that feels, like how embedded we are with just like command tab, switch apps, command T, open another tab. You'll probably even find yourself like trying to swipe things on your physical page, swiping things away and close things. But I just think there's not enough deep thinking going on because technology is so easy for us to just jump away. Like as soon as something gets hard, I'll just put that into Claude or Chat GPT. Sit there with a piece of paper and just literally write out everything that you've been thinking about for anything. And like your mind starts to just unlock different problems and different solutions for things that it wouldn't staring at your inbox all day.
I think that's probably the takeaway of the episode right there. It's funny, when I was designing this new space of ours, I wanted to completely undo my home office. I had 3 studio displays and everything you can think of, my mic and my camera set up and just all this stuff. And I said, you know what? I feel like all this does is distract me. Now I have one monitor on my desk. I have my analog, mouse, keyboard, and I have a little Ugmonk tray with my phone charger and pen. And it's fascinating the amount of time that I spend just saying, you know what, I'm going to turn my monitor off for a second. I'm going to grab a notebook. Shameless plug here. I do have an Ugmonk notebook. It is my favorite notebook. But grab it, write down, and just think. And the beauty of that simplicity is amazing. I don't know if I've pushed it far enough to go to a coffee shop just yet. I feel like I kind of built my own, but I feel you, man. It is nice to get away from the constant distractions of technology and just get back to the tactile, slow nature of what matters most. I have one last question I have to ask you. Jeff, what is on your desk?
That is not something I created. It's mostly the products that I created because I wanted them to exist. But the one other thing would be I have a Mode keyboard. I haven't gotten super far down the wormhole of mechanical keyboards because I feel like I already arrived at like the Grail keyboard. But the Mode Sonnet, and it's just one of those things. Like, there you go.
There it is.
There you go. I didn't even know you had the Sonnet. Yeah. Literally, I have the lighter version of that. And it's fun to type on. It feels good. It's super, super heavy. It's well crafted. If we're going to be typing for the rest of our lives and the input is going to be our fingers on keys, we might as well make that an enjoyable experience. I also have the old Joey Roth ceramic speakers that everybody always asks about. They're no longer in production, but they're another interesting design object. They're made out of ceramic enclosure, and then they're sitting on like these plywood and felt stands. And other than that, it's like everything I have is basically a product that I made. The goal of making Gather, which is the desk system and analog, is to make it when you sit down, you feel like you can just get into your flow, like you're not thinking about where things are. It puts you in the cockpit, all the controls are where they are, and then you can just get to work.
And is that how you stay most productive, you think, is just eliminating those distractions and keeping it down to the bare essentials that make you happy?
Yeah, that's the goal. I would say that my desk doesn't always look like it does on Instagram. My desk becomes chaotic throughout the day. And it's also the point is like for analog, it's not about having good handwriting. For Gather, it's not about Instagram pictures of your desk. But what those tools can do is like enable you to, I can literally clean up my desk in 30 seconds because everything has a place. I can get my thoughts down onto a card because there's a new card waiting for me. So there's definitely this like dichotomy of like, oh, are you just doing this for like the desk setup blogs to make your desk look cool? Or are you actually doing this to work? And I'd much rather people be doing real work at their desk and make it functional and trying to make the tools that can help them do that.